Have you ever felt like you're surrounded by actors? I certainly have. People wear masks, pretending to be something they're not. But here's the interesting part: once you learn to read between the lines, you'll start seeing through the act. I recall sitting in a meeting, where everyone was nodding and smiling, but I could sense that beneath those smiles, there were hidden agendas. It was all in the feet, the silence, and the subtle pauses. Trust me, once you start noticing these signs, you'll never view people the same way again. Ready to discover what they're really hiding? Let's dive in. The Tell Me More technique. Let me tell you, this technique feels like a superpower, without the flashy cape. The best part? No one even realizes you're using it. It's so simple, yet so effective. The trick is to sit back, stay calm, and when someone's passionately sharing their side of the story, instead of jumping in with your opinion or debating, simply say, "Tell me more." I discovered this technique years ago during a silly argument with a friend about whether pineapple belongs on pizza. I was ready to counter every point they made, but then I decided to try something different. Instead of debating, I smiled and said, "Tell me more." What happened next was incredible. They started talking about pizza, but soon, they were sharing childhood memories, family dinner stories, and even a bizarre reason why they hated pineapple as a kid. It wasn't about pizza anymore, it was an exploration of their inner world. The secret? When people feel heard, their guard comes down. They stop feeling the need to defend themselves and end up sharing much more than they originally intended. You create a space where they can drop their defenses, often without realizing it. They may think they're just making casual conversation, but in reality, they're revealing their true motivations, fears, insecurities, and even hopes. I've used this technique in business meetings, with friends, and even with people who were being a bit shady. I remember during a negotiation, I didn't push my agenda. I simply kept saying, "Tell me more." By the end, the other party had laid out their entire strategy and even explained why they were desperate for a deal. It was almost too easy. But here's the deeper truth: this isn't just about gathering information or winning arguments. It's about building connection. In a world where everyone talks more than they listen, Tell Me More allows you to understand people on a deeper level. It forces you to put your ego aside and genuinely care about their perspective. When you ask someone to elaborate without judgment, you give them a rare gift, the chance to be truly heard. In that moment, trust, understanding, and sometimes even healing can take place. This technique embodies a core Stoic principle: empathy without attachment. You're not manipulating the conversation, you're observing, understanding, and staying calm. It's not just about reading people, it's about seeing them for who they are and creating space for them to reveal their true selves. So, the next time you're in a conversation, whether it's casual, professional, or heated, try the "Tell Me More" approach. You'll be amazed at how much deeper the conversation gets, how much people reveal, and how effortless it becomes to understand them. Beyond just winning a conversation, this approach builds authentic human connections grounded in respect and genuine curiosity. That's where the true power lies, seeing others and, through them, learning more about yourself. Watch how they treat those in lesser positions. If you really want to understand someone's character, don't just watch how they treat you, observe how they treat people they consider to be beneath them. This might sound harsh, but it reveals a lot about who they truly are. Whether it's a waiter at a restaurant, a cashier at the store, or a colleague lower on the corporate ladder, how someone interacts with those who have less power speaks volumes. I learned this the hard way. I worked with someone who seemed like the nicest person, charming, funny, and respectful in meetings. But one day at lunch, I saw a completely different side of them. The moment we sat down, they were rude to the waiter, barking orders as though they were royalty and the server was beneath them. It was shocking to see the shift from warmth to arrogance. That moment was an eye-opener, and I realized it wasn't a one-time slip, it was a reflection of their true nature. They were kind only when it served them. People show their true selves when they think no one important is watching. If they're condescending to a waiter, they'll act the same way toward anyone they think can't retaliate. If they dismiss a junior colleague, that same arrogance will show up elsewhere. Someone who's polite to you but rude to others isn't truly kind, they're calculating. Think about it, when there's no social pressure, and someone believes they can treat others poorly without consequences, that's when their true nature emerges. Stoicism encourages us to observe human behavior objectively, and this is one of the clearest indicators of integrity. It's easy to be kind when there's something to gain, but real character shows up when there's nothing to lose. In my life, this principle has helped me gauge friendships, work relationships, and even dating. If someone treats the janitor with respect, thanks the bus driver, or shows kindness to a stranger, that's a person worth knowing. But if they're dismissive or rude, that's a major red flag. And here's where it gets deeper, how we treat others often reflects how we see ourselves. People who respect everyone, regardless of status, are usually secure. They don't need to put others down to feel important. But those who are cruel to others often do so to mask their own insecurities. They try to elevate themselves by stepping on others. Stoicism teaches us to recognize and avoid this arrogance in ourselves. So, if you want to truly know someone, don't be fooled by how they treat people they need to impress. Instead, pay attention to how they treat those with nothing to offer. That's the clearest way to see past the mask and into the heart of who they really are. Their past holds the key to their present. To truly understand someone, look at their past. People often say the past is behind them, but it's actually still shaping who they are today, whether they realize it or not. Their experiences, traumas, triumphs, and relationships influence everything about their thoughts, behaviors, and interactions with you in the present. This might be controversial, but it's true, people don't just move on. They carry their history with them, and sometimes that history dictates their actions. I had a friend who was constantly on edge, defensive, quick to anger, and cautious in relationships. At first, I thought it was just part of their personality, but as I learned more about their past, everything started making sense. They had been betrayed by close friends, faced financial hardships, and grew up constantly needing to prove themselves. That context explained their behavior. Their defensiveness wasn't random, it was a result of feeling like they had to protect themselves from being hurt again. Our pasts leave marks, sometimes scars, and those can explain why we act the way we do. Someone who felt neglected as a child may seek attention as an adult. A person who was burned by a business partner may distrust future collaborators. The key here isn't making excuses for someone's behavior but recognizing that they're often reacting to echoes from their past. Stoicism teaches us to observe without judgment, and understanding someone's history is crucial for seeing them clearly. This also plays out in romantic relationships. Ever date someone who seemed fine at first, but then certain patterns emerged? Maybe they became overly jealous or had commitment issues. In most cases, if you look deeper, you'll find that their past relationships left unresolved wounds. It's that fear of being hurt again that's influencing their present actions. Understanding someone's past doesn't mean tolerating toxic behavior, but it gives you insight into why they act the way they do. People often get stuck in cycles, repeating behaviors learned from past experiences without even realizing it. So, that coworker who constantly seeks validation. They're probably replaying a childhood where they didn't feel good enough. The friend who sabotages relationships. They're likely responding to deep-rooted fear of rejection from past heartbreak. Their behaviors, decisions, and habits all reflect unresolved parts of their past. Here's where it gets even deeper. Understanding someone's past not only helps you navigate your relationship with them but also gives you the opportunity to help them break free from these cycles. By gently pointing out the patterns they're repeating, you can help them become more self-aware, and maybe even guide them toward growth. Stoicism encourages self-reflection and improvement. Sometimes, understanding someone's past allows you to help them grow. It's easy to judge someone by their current behavior, but their past is the key to understanding their actions. When you start viewing people's behaviors as responses to their history, you can approach them with empathy while also protecting yourself from getting entangled in their unresolved issues. In short, the past is never really gone. To truly understand someone, you need to see the full picture, not just the chapter they're currently living. Changes in tone signal lies or hesitation. One of the biggest signs someone is hiding something is a sudden shift in their tone of voice. Most people don't realize it, but our voices often reveal what's beneath the surface. When someone is speaking confidently, their tone is steady, their pace is even, and their words flow naturally. But when they lie or hesitate, things shift, sometimes subtly, sometimes dramatically. It's as though their subconscious is signaling red flags. I once worked with someone who was always smooth-talking, always charming, and always knew exactly what to say. But one day, during a conversation about a project deadline, I noticed a change. His usual upbeat, confident voice suddenly dropped. His words came out slower, almost stuttering. That's when I knew something was off. It turned out, he hadn't made any progress on the project, but he was trying to cover it up. That shift in tone was the giveaway. He wasn't telling the whole truth, and his voice betrayed him. Here's why this happens. When people lie or feel uncomfortable with what they're saying, their mind and body end up in conflict. The brain works to maintain the lie or hide uncertainty, but the body, especially the voice, reveals the stress. This can show up as a higher pitch, a tremor, or even a pause that feels too long. It's as if their tone doesn't match their words. Think about the last time you caught someone in a lie. What did their voice sound like? Did it get quieter? Did they speak faster? Perhaps their voice became unnaturally cheerful, as if they were trying too hard to sound convincing. These are all signs that something's off. This change in tone is an unconscious signal of discomfort, whether from lying, hiding something, or just uncertainty. It's not just about catching lies either. Tone changes can also indicate hesitation or insecurity. I've experienced this in various situations, from relationships to business dealings to casual conversations. You've probably noticed it too. When someone suddenly shifts from friendly to defensive or evasive, even if their words don't match the shift, it's important to focus not just on what they're saying but how they're saying it. A sudden drop in energy, a change in pitch, or an unexpected hesitation can be your cue that the person is withholding something or feeling uncomfortable with their own words. Here's the deeper Stoic insight: people often lie not just to deceive others, but to deceive themselves. When their tone shifts, it's often because they're uneasy with the lie they're telling themselves. This discomfort leaks into their voice, betraying them without them even realizing it. Stoicism teaches us to observe without judgment, and this is a perfect example of how you can use your observational power. By paying attention to these subtle shifts, you can get a clearer understanding of their internal struggle. We do this to ourselves too. How often have you said something you didn't fully believe, only to feel your own voice falter? That's your tone reflecting your inner doubts. This is why Stoicism emphasizes the need for alignment between our thoughts, words, and actions. When they aren't in harmony, it shows, often in ways we can't control. So next time you notice someone's tone change unexpectedly, whether it's a sudden drop in energy, an awkward pause, or a shift in pitch, don't ignore it. Ask yourself, what are they holding back? What's making them uncomfortable? It might not be a full-on lie, but there's a good chance they're not sharing the whole truth. Their voice is their giveaway, and if you listen closely, it will tell you everything. The most honest moments happen when someone thinks no one is watching. If you want to understand who someone truly is, watch them in those moments when they think no one's paying attention. These are the times when people drop their social masks and reveal their true nature. It's a tough truth, but it's real. Most of us like to think that we are the same in public and private, but the reality is that people behave very differently when they think they're out of view. I remember working with a manager who was always professional when the boss was around, calm, polite, and never raising her voice. But as soon as our higher-ups left, she became a completely different person. She'd snap at the team, make condescending remarks, and treat people with total disrespect. It was eye-opening and taught me that the person someone is when they think no one's looking is often their authentic self. In the spotlight, people are hyper-aware of their image. They act in ways they believe will earn approval or avoid conflict. But when they think they're out of sight, the filters drop. You see this in small moments, how they act and they think no one will notice, how they treat people who can't offer them anything, or how they behave when they don't feel accountable. It's in these seemingly insignificant moments that their true self emerges. This happens in relationships, business, and everyday life. In romantic relationships, for example, both parties usually put their best foot forward at first, trying to impress. But if you want to understand who someone really is, observe them in quiet moments, when they're not actively trying to win your approval. How do they treat the waiter when you're out to dinner? What are they like when they're stressed, or when they think you're not paying attention? Do they still show respect and kindness, or do they let their guard down and reveal something less flattering? I've seen this in social situations too. You might have a friend who's the life of the party when everyone's watching, always joking and seeking attention. But when they think no one's paying attention, they might act aloof or selfish. Their true character shows up not in the big public moments, but in the smaller, hidden ones. This is where Stoicism comes in. A Stoic is trained to observe without judgment. People often reveal their true nature when they think they're off stage, and it's in these moments that you can truly understand them. Stoicism teaches that virtue isn't about how you act when people are watching, but how you act when no one is around. The person who remains kind and patient even without an audience is someone living in alignment with Stoic values. But not everyone is like this. Many compartmentalize their public and private selves, acting one way to maintain an image and another when no one is looking. I had a colleague who was incredibly supportive and warm in group meetings. He always had something positive to contribute and went out of his way to show support. But when we were alone, his demeanor completely changed. He became short, dismissive, and uninterested in helping unless it directly benefited him. It made me realize his public persona was a facade. The truest moments aren't when someone's in the spotlight, but when they think no one's watching. Whether they show kindness or cruelty, it's these unguarded moments that reveal the truth. And this is where you gain genuine insight into who they are. If someone can only be good when others are watching, it's not real goodness, it's performance. The Stoic lesson here is that true character is who you are when no one's watching. Stoicism teaches that we must strive to live in alignment with our values at all times, regardless of who's observing. Whether the room is full or empty, a Stoic's actions are consistent because they come from within, not from the desire for external validation. By observing others in unguarded moments, you'll see their truth, and you'll also remind yourself of the importance of living authentically, even when no one's around. So next time you want to truly understand someone, don't focus on their grand gestures or public persona. Pay attention to what they do when the spotlight is off. That's where you'll find their real character, and that's where the truth lies. Emotional reactions reveal priorities. If you want to understand what truly matters to someone, pay attention to their emotional reactions. Emotions are like an unfiltered window into a person's soul. They reveal what they value most. This idea can be uncomfortable because we like to think we control our emotions, that we can hide what really matters to us. But the truth is, when someone reacts strongly, whether with anger, excitement, or anxiety, it shows they care deeply about something. For example, I once worked with a colleague who was always calm and collected. Nothing seemed to faze him. But one day, during a routine meeting, someone suggested a small change to one of his projects, and he suddenly exploded. I was shocked by his reaction. It wasn't a big deal, yet he was so upset. What I realized was that his emotional response wasn't about the change itself, it was because the project was his passion. He had poured countless hours into it, and it wasn't just work to him, it was personal. That outburst revealed how much the project meant to him, even though he'd never said so. People often don't tell you what matters to them, but their emotions can't be hidden. The boss who becomes angry when questioned. It's not just about authority, it's about his identity being tied to being right. The friend who gets defensive when you point out something small. It's likely because it touches on an insecurity or value they hold dear. The person who lights up when praised. Recognition might be one of their top priorities, even if they never admit it. The key is this: strong emotional reactions, whether positive or negative, show what someone truly values. They may act calm or indifferent most of the time, but when something they care about is threatened or acknowledged, their emotions will flare. This isn't just about anger or frustration, it also applies to joy, excitement, or passion. If someone gets animated talking about a hobby or side project, it's because it matters to them more than you might realize. In relationships, this insight is especially powerful. If your